Le Nissan Kick-Split 2025 a beaucoup de plus. Apple CarPlay intégré pour jouer vos tunes préférées, des fonctions avancées de sécurité, un rendement énergétique remarquable, puis même la petite odeur de char neuf qu'on aime tant. Tout ça en plus pour moins. Le Nissan Kick-Split 2025 est le véhicule neuf le plus abordable au Québec. Achetez-le à partir de seulement 22 774 $, incluant un rabais à l'achat comptant de 2 600 $. Profitez de cette offre avantageuse chez votre concessionnaire dès maintenant. Jusqu'au 2 mars, des conditions s'appliquent. Détails chez Nissan.
All right, welcome back to the Elias Makos Show. Now, last week, a devastating fire broke out in Old Montreal, tragically claiming the lives of a 43-year-old mother and her 7-year-old daughter, both of whom were from France. There's new CCTV footage that was obtained by our colleagues at Nouveau Info that reveals a person breaking into the restaurant on the ground floor of the building just before the fatal blaze. Video shows an individual kicking down the front door, then leaving moments later as smoke is seen coming out of the entrance. And of course, there's additional reporting coming. I've seen the reporting from La Presse that suggests it could be connected to criminal networks that have been instilling fear in downtown restaurants for several weeks, engaging in violent extortion to force owners to pay sums as high as $100,000. Let's go to Pietro Poletti, retired Montreal Police detective and mafia expert, who joins us on the line. Mr. Poletti, Pietro, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Good morning, Elias.
What can you tell us about extortion right now of restaurants, of businesses that's happening in Montreal?
Well, it's surreal, first of all. It's something that it hasn't really been seen in the last 20, 30 years. It happened in the 70s. Extortion, the pizza. But now we're facing a new phenomenon, the disorganized crime. These new gangs, street gangs, Arab power. I was just reading a report, an article this morning in the press that was saying they interviewed a few police officers that crime has changed in Montreal. I agree with that too. But what also has changed, at the same token, is policing in the last 20 years.
So, and when you say that policing has changed, are you saying there's a link, like the policing has changed and no wonder this happens?
Well, there's a lack of policing. There's a lack of what traditional policing of arresting perpetrators. I'll give perfect examples are these fires right now, the arsons. Arrests should be made but the officers know who's done it. They know. They have suspects. I spoke to them. They just wait too long to make arrests. They make sure that they have 110% of the evidence and don't act immediately. And what that causes is a trickling down effect. Crime will continue. You must arrest perpetrators immediately, and they know who they are. Yes, it's true. They're very cautious of how they act because people will start yelling, profiling, racial profiling here and this. But unfortunately, it's become a public security issue, and leadership in the police has to put his foot down and make this city safe again, because it is not a safe city, and it's only going to get worse. Okay,
I want to ask you about, you're referencing what's changed on the police end of things, but I want to ask you what's changed on the organized crime side of things. Who are the groups now in Montreal? Because I can think about, years ago, and, it's the mafia, it's Hell's Angels, that kind of thing. Today, 2024, who are the groups that are running the show, organized crimes, crime-wise?
Well, everybody's got access to weapons today. It's very easy to get a weapon, and there's probably 30 groups operating in Montreal, 20 or 30 groups that don't get along. They're very young. They have access to fast money, drugs, and there's no consensus when it comes to leadership amongst them. So, before, when the Sicilians were there, organized crime, the Hells Angels, they would sit around a table and discuss all this. And what's going to happen is the same thing that happened in the 70s when the Dubois were muscling in the southwest area for extortion, the pizza or protection money, we'll call it what you want. The victims had to resort to other criminal groups to solve their problems. And the victims surely know who the suspects are. So we have to rebuild the confidence. The public has to have more confidence in the police. And in the same token, the police have to build up the trust they lost with the public. And the only way to do that is show them that they're there and arrest people, and not by going to restaurants and putting flashlights at while people are eating, like Eclipse does. You know, that's a technique that's passé, and we should look at other innovative techniques. But it basically comes down to the same thing: is that officers have to be present on the street. They have to communicate with citizens, residents, and bad guys, and start doing a bit of repression.
We're with Pietro Poletti, a retired Montreal Police detective and mafia expert. We're talking about this spate of violent extortion that we're seeing in the city of restaurateurs and other businesses. Now, Pietro, man, there's been so much tremendous reporting that's happening right now. You referenced a piece in La Presse. I've seen pieces in Journal de Montréal as well, talking about a bit of a chaos and the fact that these organized crime groups are not respecting, if there's a business who's paid off, they've paid the extortion to one group, and then another group comes in and says, oh, well, we want the extortion as well. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the old days, once you paid off money to one group, you were set. You didn't need to pay off money to 3 or 4 groups. Is there a bit of chaos, lawlessness between the code of organized crime happening right now?
Exactly, but what's interesting about all this, I also have my doubts if it's really a pizza or extortion. Mm-hmm. In the old days, they would target cafes, nightclubs, downtown Montreal. I'll give you an example. In the 80s and 90s, there was 480 licensed establishments between Atwater and Blurry. 480, probably 200 nightclubs. They were run either by the Irish, the Italians, and the Hells, and some the Colombians. However, they would target places of interest where there would be something in return. The fact that they're going to a restaurateur doesn't make sense. I'm sure that restaurant wasn't selling drugs or the little, pizza or dépanneur in Verdun. So I think it's probably related to something else. The victims surely know who approached them. So we have to facilitate the channels of communication between the victims and the police. I'll give you an example. Mm-hmm. If somebody has to report an extortion or knows who the suspect is and it's related to organized crime, they have to go through the channel 911, where a police car shows up in front of the place a couple of hours later because it's not a priority. So we have to facilitate like they do in other countries in Europe, where you have a direct line with detectives and you meet somewhere and you discuss the matter. Uh-huh. And so everything has to be relooked. And there's another, I'll give you, I got calls every day. Police are afraid to arrest people. Uh-huh. And if they do arrest them, they release them on a promise to appear or a citation when they should be detained. A lawyer called me 3 days ago. An elderly man was 100 years old. He got beaten up by his son. He was black and blue. Officers went to the scene and they didn't arrest him. Reason being that the individual don't want to press charges. Uh-huh. But there's clear directives. When it's a family issue, when it comes to violence, there should be arrest. So they refrain from arresting people for various reasons, and you hear the same comments. By the time I finish the paperwork, he's out there.
Pietro,
but that's not their priority. That shouldn't be their priority. And the same thing with the arsons and extortions. Arrests have to be made immediately, and they know who these individuals are.
Pietro, listen, I have to wrap up, so I need to be quick on this last one, but I need to ask you, was there a code broken by whoever is responsible for this, whatever criminal organization, if that's indeed what happened here? Is there a code broken if they do a fire and arson that leads to the death of 2 civilians, 2 people that are not an organized crime? Was some sort of code broken here? Absolutely. That there's a code book. But today, like we said, there's so many street gangs, different values, different ethics. And if it was ordered by somebody
hired them, organized crime, if they use these punks to do that, I think the person that committed that arson, he'll be probably found dead somewhere.
Pietro, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your insight. I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
That's Pietro Poletti right there, retired Montreal police detective and a mafia expert.